It's not for nothing that BMW came up with a new name to classify their crossovers, SAV, Sport Activity Vehicle, replacing the word utilitarian with active in the then generally accepted abbreviation SUV. The first Bavarian SUV in 1999 was the BMW X5, and 4 years later it was joined by the BMW X3. Both are one of the most driving cars in their classes. And if the BMW X5 in our conditions does not demonstrate the best survivability, there are enough problems with complex electrics, and with steering, and first of all with an aluminum half-eye, then X3 has earned a reputation as one of the most reliable BMW. Of course, HZ is not perfect. The exterior is the first thing that can be spoiled by peeling luggage rails. The coating begins to swell at the junction of parts. It is better to immediately protect it with anti-corrosive. The correct body galvanization is not at all afraid of corrosion, and unsuccessful door seals on cars before 2006 can erase the paint on the thresholds along with the primer. Door styling crossovers often have headlight washer motors. But even in more recent cars, the license plate lights can also rot due to hardened seals, and the waterproofing inside the doors can peel off and allow water to pass onto the cabin floor. My HZ did not escape this either, during a downpour, making a puddle under the feet of the front passenger. A flood under your feet is also capable of being arranged by a rear washer tube that has spread at the joints. Laid under the carpet. In winter you need to buy only high-quality liquid that does not freeze in the nozzle. By the way, although the rear window gets dirty and not too quickly, do not forget to use its wiper even in summer. The mechanism turns sour from inactivity. As a rule, disassembly, cleaning and lubrication saves it. Another common cause of the swamp in the cabin is the clogged drainage of the optional sunroof passing inside the pillars. And the panoramic sunroof itself is only good for the first couple of years, then the likelihood that the fragile mechanism will jam increases with each press of the button. The climate system works reliably and for a long time. Don't forget about replacing the cabin filter. But the heating of the steering wheel and seats is not always the case. But if the first, with frequent use, only prematurely ages the skin of the steering wheel braid and fails without damage, then the second, having burned out, is able to burn through the upholstery. But it is more likely to disassemble the seat, especially on cars from America, when the airbag malfunction signal is turned on to replace the passenger presence sensor cloth. It collapses under high load. By the way, make sure that the washers, when wiping the roof, do not climb onto the seat with their feet, and even caused a BMW recall in 2008. For restyled HZs with 2.5 and 3.0 gasoline engines, 35% and 40% of cars, respectively, it is better to replace the oil level sensor in the engine, which is confused in the readings, without delay. It is not easy to check the amount of oil without a conventional dipstick, and these motors do not suffer from modesty in its consumption. When driving dynamically over 10,000 kilometers, a 4-liter canister of expensive synthetics with LL01 or LL04 tolerances can easily be topped up. The oil appetite was built into the Bavarian engines from the very beginning. This is how the design of the piston rings is calculated. For what? 3 birds with 1 stone are killed at once. Friction losses are reduced, the wear of the cylinder piston group is lower, and the oil is somehow refreshed within the extended service interval. Interestingly, diesel engines, with them, up to 25% of cars, do not have such a noticeable oil consumption. To ensure a long replacement interval, a sufficiently large crankcase volume is enough. Even my 2-liter M47 engine takes about 5.5 liters of lubricant when replacing. The engine resource is good. Even the base 2-liter gasoline unit, which is frankly weak for a crossover, reaches 300,000 kilometers. All engines are equipped with a chain that does not remind of its existence for a long time, and interventions in the gas distribution system of gasoline engines after 100 to 150,000 kilometers are more likely to require the VANOS, variable knock and well and stir-on, valve timing control system. If there are no misfires, original spark plugs with platinum electrodes usually withstand 30 to 40,000 kilometers, and the engine is in a fever, then most likely either the solenoid valve of the VANOS system, €100, or hydraulic actuators with worn or hardened sealing rings are to blame. After 3 to 5 years or 100 to 150,000 kilometers, the membrane of the crankcase ventilation valve usually dries up. The fact that oil starts to flow from the engine through all the cracks is not so bad. A valve cover shattered into pieces due to increased pressure can leave an indelible impression. It's also bad that carbon builds up quickly on the bottoms of the pistons, and this leads not only to unstable operation of the engine, but also to the risk of overheating, and we know how afraid its long aluminum cylinder head is. In addition, overheating is fraught with the failed pump, broken plastic guide dampers of the thermostat, and small radiator honeycombs clogged with poplar fluff. If, after 120 to 150,000 kilometers, a chirp appears in the block for changing the length of the DISA intake manifold, differentiert Saugnlich, do not delay the repair. Parts of the crumbling mechanism can get into the engine. And the gasoline in the risk group, airflow meter and electronic throttle control unit. If you don't constantly anneal, the turbocharger is able to take the bar to 250,000 kilometers, and if you don't save on diesel fuel, the nozzles with high-pressure fuel pumps will work no less, even in more whimsical, disposable N-series engines with an aluminum cylinder block on cars younger than 2007. The cast-iron M-series engines have their own nuances. If after 160 to 180,000 kilometers it smells of burnt rubber, it means that the torsional vibration damper of the crankshaft pulley has collapsed. In order not to be taken by surprise on the road, it is better to change the pulley preventively after 120,000 kilometers. In a 3-liter M57 diesel engine, about 10% of cars, after 150,000 kilometers, the steel exhaust manifold may crack. But much more carefully on any Euro 3 diesel engine, on cars until 2006, closer to 170 to 200,000 kilometers, you need to look at the intake manifold. If there are traces of oil on the damper bodies of the swirl channels, urgently go to the service. The damper with the broken axle goes straight into the cylinder. Due to the increased degree of recirculation in the EGR system, diesel engines with Euro 4 needed a heat exchanger, which after 160 to 200,000 kilometers can burn out from the inside, and the antifreeze goes into the exhaust. But the recirculation valve itself creates more problems. On our fuel in a traffic jam city mode, it clogs with deposits almost every year, and many owners, spitting on the environment, turn it off or remove it completely, at the same time getting rid of the potential ambush with the heat exchanger. And after 4 or 5 years, it is better to change glow plugs prophylactically on any of the diesel engines. Even one failed candle can pull a common electronic control unit with it. A very reliable manual gearbox was installed with any of the diesel or gasoline engines. Repairs are usually limited to replacing oil seals, and it has to be removed only after 180 to 200,000 kilometers to replace the clutch. By the way, it's better not to drive with a slipping clutch for a long time, so as not to buy a new dual-mass flywheel at the same time. An automatic transmission from a calm owner can go up to 250,000 kilometers. But there is a risk in buying a used BMW with an automatic. After 150,000 kilometers, this is a roulette. The main weak links of the ZF and GM gearboxes are the torque converter and clutches, and the possible ones are the hydraulic control unit and the oil pump. What to expect from the transmission? The advanced X-Drive all-wheel drive system is complex, but on cars younger than 2006, attention is minimal. The main potential refusenik after 160 to 180,000 kilometers is the servo drive of the multiplate clutch of the transfer case. Pre-styling HC has more problems. In the Razdatka, after 120 to 150,000 kilometers, the chain can stretch. Because of this, the unit's even changed under warranty. On cars of the first years of production, the outboard bearings of the rear drive shaft rarely went more than 30 to 40,000 kilometers. After completion they became eternal. But the front cardan often has to be changed as an assembly after 100 to 130,000 kilometers, due to poor protection against dirt. The rear crosspiece dies. In 2006 it was covered with a screen. Change the shaft with the broken crosspiece immediately, otherwise the transfer case and the front final drive will get it. Suspension strength has rarely been a BMW virtue, but the XZ is the exception to the rule. Structurally, although everything here resembles the BMW X5, the levers are not light alloy, but steel, and the suspension lasts much longer. The first replacements usually begin after 60 to 80,000 kilometers from the stabilizer struts. After 120 to 160,000 kilometers of our roads, shock absorbers, individually changeable silent blocks of levers, ball bearings, wheel bearings, can fail as if on command. Light tapping in the steering mechanism after 100 to 120,000 kilometers is not an indication for its urgent replacement. A new rail assembly with rods may be needed no earlier than 170 to 200,000 kilometers. If it leaks due to significant play,